Alrighty, got about a minute or so. I'm going to go ahead and get started with just some announcements. Of course, we want to thank everyone who is in office with us today, sitting in our classroom, joining us for the first Austin Lunch and Learn of 2023. But yeah, that deserves a round of applause, right? But for those of you that are joining us online, we want to thank you. This is obviously a very important topic that we need to discuss. And if you can't be here in the office, we definitely want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get the information by joining us online. But with all of our Lunch and Learns, whether you're in Houston, Austin, or in Dallas, if you're not in Texas, you can always view them online as well. Of course, we'd love to have you out in our classroom, in our offices. Love to see your faces, so thank you for joining us today. What we're going to be talking about is the new Secure Act. Would you mind clicking the PowerPoint in the back there? So that we can give you some helpful information about the new bill that just passed. So today Derek's going to be teaching, kind of giving a brief overview and just sharing some of the things that may impact self-directed IRA holders with this new piece of legislature here. So, like I mentioned, our Austin Lunch and Learns, we also have other Lunch and Learns in our cities, but we do webinars as well. So every Saturday at noon Central, we host our Self-Directed IRA Saturday webinar, and we bring in speakers all across the nation to come and present helpful investing education for you guys. We reserve this for the speakers that may not be able to travel to Texas and join us in person. Still gives you guys an opportunity to get the information from these experts that may be in other states. If you're looking for other types of events, not just education, we'd love to invite you out, of course, to join us for our National Networking Happy Hour as well. That is every fourth Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time. But that's a really great opportunity if you have a deal, if you have a service, maybe you don't want to sit around, listen to any education, but you just want to, be a mover and shaker, get the deals done. That's a great place to meet other investors that are doing the same kinds of things that y'all are as well. Or maybe, meet an investor that's doing something new, something that piques your interest. It's a new year, maybe a new time to start picking another alternative investment to dabble in. But if you can't make it out, you can't join us online, not you can always view our classes on YouTube or on Facebook. They're always recorded and live streamed there as well. If you want to share a class with somebody that may, find this information helpful, go back on our YouTube pages. We have playlists based on what type of education you might be looking for, whether it's the basics, whether it's, raising money, borrowing money, syndications, all sorts of topics there for you guys on our YouTube page. Hey, Derek, would you mind clicking over again? Every time we don't click on it, unfortunately, it doesn't make my clicker work. But I can tell you what's on the next slide, and it's going to be one of our upcoming events that we have. I believe it's the Masters of Tax Avoidance Boot Camp. Yeah, there we go. So this is going to be an in-person, one-day crash course located in the Houston area, not too far here from Austin. But for those of you that may be online joining us from our Houston location, this is going to be a Thursday event that's going to have multiple experts, kind of like our Quest Expo on a much, much smaller scale. Just a one-day event, and as we've heard, Thursday is the new Saturday. So join us for Thursday's event. We'll also be maybe giving some coupon codes at the end of the event today if you want to stay tuned and listen to that. If you know somebody that may need a self-directed IRA, and if you want to earn some free credits towards your account, we would love to share with you our Refer a Friend program. So every time you tell someone about Quest, they open an account, we're going to give them a discount towards their fees. We're also going to give you a discount towards your fees. So it's a win-win for both people there. We'll get you a discount. We'll also help maybe somebody else take control of their retirement as well. Pretty simple, just put refer on the account, but if you're looking for more information about that, we can share that with you at the end. If you do have additional questions, whether it be about any of the events that we have, learning about how to start self-directing for yourself or maybe a friend, or you just want to maybe check on an account that you already have with us, it's the new year, it's a great time to do account maintenance and see what you might not have done last year, give us a call, shoot us an email, or reach out to us online. We have a live chat feature. It's a great place if you have a quick question. We're always there available during business hours to answer your questions. Or this last little QR code right here, you can get your consultation scheduled right away. It takes you directly to a Calendly, and you'll be good to go. And so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of today's presentation. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Derek Long. He's one of our senior IRA specialists, is a supervisor in the IRA specialist department, and is an absolute wealth of knowledge. So for those that are here, let's give him a round of applause, and let's bring you on up.
Thanks, Sarah. All right. Is the mic working? Can y'all hear me on the mic? So that's really for the people online. I get what I like to consider one of the most boring topics out there, right? No one likes to talk about Congress and bills and those type of things and IRS tax code, but it is one of those things that honestly we always have to remember is at the forefront of everything that's going to surround what we do here as a society. So for those of you online, I just went and I took a peek. There was 78 of you out there online. Make sure you're leveraging the chat box. We do have some moderators, so if you do happen to ask a question as we go through this, the moderator will stop me and just ask me the question directly, and I will repeat it for everyone out there so they can hear it as well. So we're going to be going over a lot of information in a small period of time. For those of you here in person, make sure it's an open conversation. You're not going to interrupt me. Just blurt out your question, raise your hand, something like that, as we go through some of these type of things. As always, quick disclaimer, everything we talk about today is really just for your educational purposes. I'm not here to give you tax advice, legal advice, or investment advice. Today's presentation is really only going over recent changes at the Congress level and updates at the IRS level. So, as we go through this, boop, boop, boop. Interesting. This keeps happening on this thing. I wonder why. Megan, you want to just stand back there and click the thingy for me? Boop. Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. You love doing this stuff live. Haha. Just move the mouse over until you see it pop up over here on this side. Well, I wanted to start off with a quick history lesson, right? And in order to do a good history lesson, we got to make sure that everything I talk about today is cited 100%, right? Everything that I'll be showing you and talking about, and as we go through this, you guys will notice there's going to be a cited aspect down below, whether it's a court case, whether it's directly from Congress. And the only article that I talk about at all is one that our CEO and our chairman of the board wrote, Quincy Long. Outside of that, I'm not using any information that comes from a third party. Now, what I mean by that is these third parties aren't other attorneys or other people's opinions or other CPAs. Notice it's cited directly from congress.gov, cited directly taking the court case text out of any court cases I reference. So I think that's very important because too many times we try to reference and look at things on a consistent basis, and it's someone's opinion. Every single time you guys have out there and saw a news blurb, an article, that is someone's opinion about a certain area. And not saying the opinion's wrong, not saying the opinion's right, but it's nice when we can get the information directly from the source itself. So everything you see today will be cited 100%. So a little history lesson. Go ahead and just click next, Megan, if you can. Does anyone know when self-directed IRAs started? Anyone? Nina, I'm going to bug you. You've been a client of ours for like 20 years, I feel like.
Like in the 80s or 70s?
It's actually, you're correct. It's been in the 70s. So a lot of times people don't realize you've been able to use a self-directed IRA since 1974, right? It was created during what they call the ERISA Act. The ERISA Act being really the first time the U.S. as a whole started looking at the next generation for retirement purposes. So this was kind of unique to see, and a lot of times I think people, they miss that aspect. So if we're talking about the ERISA Act and when it was created, we have to understand why, which was A, really for retirement accounts, but B, how can we leverage it and use it? Well, originally, only the original banks that really helped in this area would allow you to set up any type of retirement account. We call them now 401ks, but did you know 401ks don't really exist? 401k is the part of the tax code, right, that your retirement account falls under. It's actually labeled as a qualified retirement plan, is the proper name for it, or QRP. So as we go through these, people started realizing, well, that's kind of interesting. I can invest in whatever I'd like, but the custodian would set us up a retirement account. Well, the custodian that set you up that retirement account would say, hey, I'm only going to let you invest in what makes me money, not necessarily what makes you money. And this is what would create, honestly, the public market. Now, this is what you guys know of as the Fortune 500 stocks, mutual funds, annuities, government bonds. So if I went to Wells Fargo, I could set up a retirement account, and the retirement account would only be able to invest in what Wells Fargo said I could invest in. So people didn't realize that you could actually set up a retirement account and invest in anything. And I do mean just about anything. The IRS said you can't invest in collectibles because the value is kind of fake, right? You can't really value the Mona Lisa. So you can't use your IRA for that. And you can't invest into life insurance contracts. So they said, hey, we don't like you betting on people's life. That's it. You can invest in anything else. And we've even seen a lot of that here at Quest. We've seen people invest in things like startup video game companies, right? Soy sauce bottles. We do talk about real estate a lot, but it's because the founders of Quest are actual real estate investors. So that's why we always relate it always back to that, but it doesn't need to be. So as this went along, something happened. People quit saving. A lot of people quit saving for retirement. And you see this with the current generation that's coming about, the ones that a lot of times we refer to as millennials. If you talk to a millennial, very rarely are they saving any type of money. Why? Because it's the I need it now mentality. What is in it for me today? Well, this has started to create a problem. And that problem is that as the millennials get older, we're not going to have Social Security anymore. And Congress recognized this. So what they did is they put in place the Secure Act, right, 2.0. Now, I label it as 2.0 because there was an original aspect that they had to cut. They changed it. And it was changed multiple different times before finally passing. I still can't go forward with it. So with the Secure Act, right, what does it stand for? It stands for setting everyone up for retirement aspects. Sorry, guys. It's all popping on up. I know. This is fun. With that note, take a big old sip of coffee. Boop. So what is the Secure Act? Setting every community up for retirement enhancement. So I like this aspect. Hey, Sarah, I'm sorry to bug you, but if I don't click on this immediately, then is it going to keep doing that? Should I just do this the whole time? Okay. So we went through these aspects. We got this passed. And what was unique is I felt that Quest was a big part of getting this passed and through. The reason why is myself, I sit on what they call a government relations committee. I work with a group called Think Realty. And what's nice is they allowed me to represent every single self-directed IRA company out there. So when I go, I get to speak in front of Congress now on a quarterly basis. Every quarter, I get to go and I get to talk about changes at the retirement level. And they actually ask our opinion. So when I do this, I can't talk about Quest. I have to talk about retirement accounts as a whole. So I got to have a lot of inside knowledge on these areas. So first off, how are bills passed? I'm going to ask the youngest person in the room, how are bills passed? Don't read it. Do you know? Through Congress. I'll take it. So first off, every time a bill is presented, it is voted on by the House of Representatives, which I want to say consists of 435 people. It might be 436, right? The House votes on this bill. If it passes the House, it goes to the Senate. The Senate has to vote, and then finally the President signs off, and boop, we have a brand new bill. So Congress is made up of these three sections: the House of Representatives, the Senate, and then finally our President. So knowing this, originally this bill was presented in December 2022. It's actually supposed to say December 2021. Sorry, right? But as this went through, the bill, as it was voted on, it would pass the Senate with the House of Representatives with a 94% approval rating. That's a pretty high approval rating. Remember, it has to pass the House, past the Senate, and then the president. So if a 94% approval rating, why did it not get approved fully by the Senate until December 26th? They waited literally 6 more months to approve this bill. Why? Because of the midterm elections. So when we look at midterm elections, there always has to be things. They don't want to create waves. So this is kind of what ended up happening as we went through this whole process with the most recent Secure Act. Now, when we look at the question.
How much did this pass in the Senate? Was it also like a lot of support?
Yeah, only one person voted it down in total in the Senate. So the House of Representatives, once again, consist of 430-something people. The Senate has 101. One person says, no, I don't like it. No one cares about you. So, as we go through this, there is a total of 51 sections in the Secure Act, but I broke it down to the 7 key takeaways of this aspect. So I'm going to break down each one of these sections real quick, and once again, remember, all of this is cited directly from Congress. So you'll see this, and we're going to start with Section 101, and we're going to make it all the way, and I'm ending on Section 322. Section 101 is what they like to label as automatic enrollment. Now this passed, if we look up here on my PowerPoint, the date you see up here is the year this takes effect. I put that up there because some of these will change as the years go on. So automatic enrollment, what it means, that is if you start working at a brand new employer, brand new, and they offer a retirement plan, you will automatically be enrolled. That's it. That's all it means. Now, why is this important? Because unfortunately, a lot of people say, well, I don't want that money taken from my paycheck. Right? I don't want that money taken from my paycheck and put into a retirement account. So the new bill says, nope, you're automatically going to be enrolled. 3% of your paycheck will automatically go into that, and we're going to call it a 401k. It could be a 403b, it could be a TSP, it could be a 457, but 3% of your paycheck will automatically be contributed. In addition, this will increase by 1% every single year until you reach 10%. Now, how many people do you think would freak out about that if they realized that automatically they could be losing 10% of their paycheck because they're being forced to save for retirement? It seems, right? That seems honestly really drastic. It does. And Congress did this, though, because they said, hey, the thought process is with the new generation. Remember, the millennials aren't saving for retirement. They're going to look at this like a subscription. We all have those subscriptions to Netflix, Hulu, the gym, it doesn't matter. And we don't cancel them, right? We keep paying for them even if we're not using them anymore. So they're looking at this by automatically enrolling you into that 401k that you will automatically just stay subscribed. Question there in the back.
Is it still optional for pre-existing employees?
Yeah, so no matter what, now, great question. So the question was, is this going to be optional for pre-existing employees? Not only is it optional for pre-existing employees, it's also optional for current employees. I said they're going to automatically enroll you. You can absolutely unenroll in this aspect. You don't need to participate in your company's 401k. The thought process here is by forcing you to enroll in it, you now have to take extra steps to unsubscribe.
And they're going to make it difficult.
Yep. Question.
So if you change a job after 2 years with a current employer, does it go back to the 3% automatic enrollment, or would it kind of be at 5?
Nope. Good question. So the question there for those of you guys online said, if I start a new job, right, and boop, I end up changing jobs down the road, does the 3% go back to that, or does it continue on? It does go back to the 3%. Now, the reason why is, guys, you can choose how much you want to contribute to your 401k, right? The only reason they're putting these percentages in here are to hopefully help incentivize the millennials to save for retirement. Section 106 is the RMD age is slowly going to increase. All right. Now, what do I mean by RMDs? RMDs are required minimum distributions you have when you own a tax-deferred retirement account. Tax-deferred being traditional IRAs, 401ks, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, something like that. So in 2020, this changed from 70.5 to 72. This was actually a big problem. Problem with the IRS, problem with CPAs, problem with tax attorneys, problem with Quest. Because if I was 71, did I take an RMD? I mean, at 70 and a half, I was supposed to. And then you changed the rule on me, and now you're telling me it's 72, but last year I took an RMD, and this year I don't have to. I'm confused. So was the IRS. So were CPAs. So a lot of people were confused on this. So Congress learned its lesson and said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to slowly increase the RMD age, and they already have this put in place. So as of this year, your RMDs start at age 73. But in 2030, it will increase to 74, and in 2033, this will increase to 75. So the IRS already has put in place these things to be increased, to help space out and prevent confusion with CPAs, tax attorneys, and honestly, their IRS auditors that were recently hired. As we keep going, sections 108 and section 603. Now, I combined both of these because I thought these were very unique and they counterintuitively affect one another. So section 108 will increase catch-up contribution limits to your employer retirement plans. So catch-up contributions to 401ks, 403bs, TRSs, whatever it might be that you have. Now, this amount that is being increased by is $10,000. That's kind of nice. But this increased amount of $10,000, it's only if you're between the ages of 62 and 64. Ah, see, I like your face. So I have people here in the audience, for those that are online, who go, what? Why? Why the ages of 62 to 64? What do you think, if you had to guess? Well, it's a catch-up, but like in a catch-up contribution for my IRA, it just, once I turn 50, I consistently have a catch-up contribution now. It never goes away. So they gave us an additional $10,000 catch-up between these ages right here only, 62, 63, 64. So retirement age, according to the IRS, starts at 59 and a half. But a lot of people, and where we see the majority of catch-up contributions being made, are between these ages. So the IRS and Congress were like, you know what? We can't permanently give you a $10,000 catch-up contribution because it's going to give you way too much money to shovel away. All right? So we will increase this limit between these ages only. And that's where people seem to be making the most catch-up contributions. Now, this was all Section 108. But Section 603 talks also about this catch-up contribution. It absolutely 100%, that $10,000 catch-up has to be Roth. Has to be Roth. Right? So the reason is normally if you contribute $10,000 to a pre-taxed account, you get a $10,000 tax deduction. All right. I like my tax deductions. IRS says, we need you to put it in a Roth because A, we don't want you taking those tax deductions. We want our taxes. B, this is good for you because anytime we have money in a Roth, this does grow tax-free. So if you can change this $10,000 you contributed to 20, the growth is truly tax-free in this aspect. So this is really nice to see, but there's something else on here that people, I think, missed. Is every single year until this year, Congress has talked about getting rid of the Roth IRA. This has always been a topic that has been brought up every single year. Well, what's unique about that topic is, look, they're clearly not getting rid of the Roth. They're now putting in provisions that will force you to contribute to a Roth. So this is nice to see. So we like this. We really, really do. Section 109, student loan payments count as contributions. What? So who's heard that, oh my God, they're going to just wipe all the student loan debt free. Please get rid of it. Despite what you think, right, that's not on the table. Sorry, I love coffee. But what they are going to do is the IRS realized that if you do have student loans and you're having to make your payments, well, I probably can't make my student loan payment and contribute to a 401k. Now I'm losing literally my whole paycheck if you think about it. So knowing this aspect, well, if you make a student loan payment, your employer can say, hey, We're going to pretend that you actually made that student loan payment to your 401k, and your employer now can match that aspect.
Now, you said can,
Yes.
so that sounds like it's voluntary.
Nope. So great question. So because I use the term can, and I'm very specific with my verbiage since I don't give tax advice, right? This will be forced by every employer. If the employer offers an employer plan, right, and they give you a matching aspect, right, and you'll see matching 3%, matching dollar for dollar, matching 6%, whatever it is. Usually that match is based off how much you put in. So if you put in $1,000, they're going to match you dollar for dollar. If you put in 6%, they're going to match you 6%. Right? But if you are making a student loan payment, that student loan payment will act as if you put it in there, and the employer is going to match that aspect. So this is really good. Once again, remember, this is really to help a lot of those millennials, because why? They don't save. Unique aspects of it. Section 601 is going to be for SEPs and simples. If you have a SEP IRA or a simple IRA, these are always been considered tax-deferred accounts. So if I wanted to contribute to my SEP IRA, in 2022, you could put in up to $61,000 a year in there. That's a lot. Now, that $61,000, if I wanted to move it to a Roth, I had to fill out a Roth conversion form, do a Roth conversion, and move it over to a Roth IRA. So what was a lot of people doing? They were saying, all right, I'll do that, and then I'll fill out those extra forms, so I put it in here. And it was just a roundabout way to put money in your Roth. Congress says, why are we going through all these steps? Can't we just make the SEP a Roth? Yes, you can. So what's nice about this is the SEP and the simple IRAs now are going to have a section of them that can be considered a Roth component. That is really unique. Ready for the problem with this, though? When was this bill passed? Does anyone remember? December 26th of 2022, literally 16 days ago. Imagine me in Quest, a retirement custodian. Now you're like, hey, I could go ahead and contribute my Roth component to my SEP. How do we track this? Oh. Right? We barely have known about this bill because they just passed it. They just passed it. So a lot of custodians, whether it's Wells Fargo, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Quest, we're all trying to figure out what is going to be the best way for us to go ahead and track these things. So realistically, as of right now, most people and most CPAs, most tax attorneys would recommend setting up 2 SEP IRAs. Right? One for the pre-taxed money, one for the post-tax money. Kind of sucks they gave custodians 0 time. Hey, we're going to pass this bill on December 26th, and it goes effective 3 days later, 4 days later. Makes it tough on you. Gotta love it. I saved this section for last. If you notice, it kind of went from section 101 all the way up to the 600s, but section 322 I wanted to save for last because I felt like this one specifically targeted what we consider to be a self-directed IRA. Great coffee, God. So section 322 talks all about prohibited transactions in an IRA. If you are buying and selling stocks at Fidelity, you have such a small, low risk, we're talking better chance of winning the lottery than doing a prohibited transaction with Fidelity. Why? Because they don't deal in self-directed style accounts. Right? They don't deal in you using your IRA to buy real estate. They don't deal in your IRA to invest in a small business that's not publicly traded. Because of that, they actually put the section in here and they just label it as a prohibited transaction. Now, all the way up until recently, prohibited transactions would affect your retirement account. If you entered into one, we always labeled it as blowing it up. You would lose everything. You'd lose the full retirement account. Yes?
I'm not sure. Did you say that Quest can hold securities?
Nope. Quest does not hold any type of publicly traded asset. No public stocks, securities, mutual funds, CDs, government bonds. Nope.
Private securities?
Yeah, as long as it's privately held, absolutely. Not a problem. So with these prohibited transactions, if you entered into one, you could lose your entire retirement account. That's scary. Question.
Just that account?
If you had multiples, that was what this bill was targeting, because we never knew. We truly never knew. And the only people, once again, that would enter into prohibited transactions are usually ones that have a form of what we call checkbook control. Meaning I use my IRA, I set up an LLC, the LLC goes out and buys the asset. So the IRS finally said, hey, you know what? Section 322 is, we're going to literally help define this. The prohibited transaction is only going to affect that IRA. So if you set up a secondary IRA, that IRA is going to have its own level of asset protection and not going to affect any type of prohibited transaction that the first IRA entered into. So I like this, because guess what? Sometimes you want to do something that's in the gray area. I'm not saying do something prohibited, but a lot of times wealthy people have taken a larger risk by playing in those gray areas. Well, then let's set up a secondary IRA. That way, if the IRS comes and knocking like, hey, you're not allowed to do that, well, that's all right. You're only affecting that account. You're not affecting the big bucket.
At that point, they say, prove it.
The reason I like this, though, is this literally seems that it's targeting checkbook control style accounts. Why? So many people out there have taken their IRA, they set up an LLC, and that LLC goes and sets up other LLCs, and sets up other LLCs, and then buys all these other assets. And you'll see people teach these type of methods to help hide things. But ultimately, when you break it down, you get to the very end user, it's one IRA that helps start that whole chain reaction. So, unfortunately, a lot of other custodians have started to change their rules and regulations due to this section. So let's look at that and what I mean by that. What does this mean really for the self-directed IRA industry is, honestly, Congress is looking at us a lot more. Some people say this is good. Some people say this is bad. I think it's just info, right? It's just things changing, things are becoming more up to date. So what happened, right, is Congress is now, they're taking a more interest in this. I like to think that Quest has a big part in that because, like I said, we are on that government relations committee. We do get to speak at the Capitol on a quarterly basis now. That's really unique. It is. It's kind of cool that we get to go there and represent the retirement area. Right? Younger people, when we say younger, typically we mean 40 and under. All right? Don't save. They really don't. It's so tough to get them to understand it, so they're trying to force people to save more for their retirements. This also means that there's more eyes on you too, though. If Congress is looking at these things, they're watching you. They're watching us. They're watching all the custodians. There are ways to do investments and avoid ever using Quest. I teach a whole class on how to avoid all the fees at Quest. You have to pay one fee and you're good to go. All right, you use your IRA, you set up a trust, you set up an LLC, and it's really cool. It is, and it's a great tactic. But the problem is, you're now going to have a lot more eyes, not just Quest, watching you doing this. That means there's more risk for potential audits, fraud, and a lot more scrutiny. And guess what? I have a court case to back all of this up that just happened. So what happened was, we have very limited court cases on self-directed IRAs. We really do. In total, there's probably about 14 or 15. And most of the time what happens is it's someone that did something really, really dumb. And the IRS went after that individual strictly because they knew it was a for sure win. But now they're starting to look, and people are becoming more and more educated on self-directed IRAs. Well, in November of 2021, a court case came out, McNulty versus Commissioner. Once again, remember, everything I talk about is 100% cited. Anything you see here on the screen will be fully cited directly from the court case documents, which you can go ahead, if you guys want the PowerPoint out there, we'll email it over to you. We don't mind. All right, if anyone here in the room needs the PowerPoint, let us know, but just so that way you can read the exact court case text. So let's talk about what this was, McNulty versus Commissioner. Anytime you see this phrase, if you guys don't study tax law, McNulty is always, the first person is always going to be the person that's the defendant. Commissioner is the state, the IRS. So, boop, we have McNulty. McNulty wanted to use their self-directed IRA and own American Eagle coins. All right? They did research on multiple custodians, and they found one where the custodian would set them up an LLC. They said, hey, what we're going to do is we'll set you up an IRA. We'll set up an LLC for that IRA, and we'll let you be the manager. Great. So then what happens from there? Nothing. We don't have to monitor you now. You run the LLC. You make all the decisions. You never have to talk to us again. We just charge you a fee, and we're going to wipe our hands of it. So the McNulty said, well, that sounds great, because now I can use, and that's why we call it checkbook control. That checkbook, I can write a check for my investment. I can choose to do what I want. Not bad. Do you think the McNulty sit here, though, and research this stuff on a daily basis? Until you guys came to this class, how many people knew this bill passed on December 26th? Right? No, that's our job. Thank you, Megan. One of our employees raised their hand in the back. She's like, I knew, of course. So let's look at the cliff notes on this. The McNultys, first off, they stored these coins in a safe. Right? Where was that safe kept? In their personal home. Huh. That doesn't seem that bad, but there could be some problems with that. In addition, that safe held other assets. Now, when I say other assets, it wasn't clearly defined what those assets are, right? We all live in Texas. So if you live in Texas, some people have a gun safe. Maybe they have gold in there. Maybe they have their birth certificates. It doesn't matter what it is, but other assets were held inside this safe. Next, the LLC also owned other assets. So it wasn't just the gold. Remember, they originally set up this LLC to hold what? American Eagle gold, right? Coins. They called it coins. The coins were made of gold and silver. They never updated the value of the LLC to the custodian. If you're a client of Quest, we bug the hell out of you for those fair market values. Nina's we have a client here by the name of Nina. She's in the back and knows what those F&Vs are. So if you're out there and you're wondering why we bug you for those F&Vs on a consistent basis, it's not us. The banking regulations that for us, because we do operate out of Texas, it's the Texas Department of Banking, require us to update the value of everyone's IRA every single year. We do this by you telling us, what is this LLC worth? Now, most custodians out there, until recently, they have never bugged you about this. We didn't used to bug you about it. We started hitting you really hard in 2017 because the rules were updated. Well, guess what happened? A lot of custodians chose not to do that because they didn't want to bug their clients. McNulty's, hint, 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 weren't being bugged for their F&Vs. Uh-oh. So let's see what happened. All right? The IRS said you cannot use your IRA for this investment the way it was structured. They actually had no issue with the IRA buying gold. That was not the problem. It was the way the overall investment was structured was the problem. All right? The legal term they ended up using in the court case was they had unfettered control to the IRA-owned assets. Now, I actually, when I was researching this case, I had to Google what unfettered mean. Does anyone know? Keith, I'm going to look at you. Do you know exactly like where this term came from? Yep, so it means tied. You're tied together, unbound. And this was actually used in the chain gangs, right? When they would chain all the prisoners together and have them go either pick up trash or do work in the cornfields or anything like that. And I was like, oh. No, it's not another term for commingling. It's unfettered, so meaning that they literally just have access that they should not have had access.
It's like us having control, being able to go into Quest, into everybody else's accounts, including ours, without their permission.
Yeah, so that's a great way to look at it. So overall, the legal term, they said, hey, you guys have unfettered control of that IRA's assets. Next, the bookkeeping did not have proper vesting. Now, the LLC, when you look into it, is called Green Top Nurseries LLC, or Green Top Home Nursery LLC, something like that. So they would shortcut it. They'd say, hey, Green Top purchased these assets. Green Top LLC purchased these assets. Green Top Nursery LLC purchased these assets. Well, all three of those are different. So every time they used the LLC to either buy a property, buy new gold, sell something, they were changing the vesting name. How many times has a custodian probably bugged you, it doesn't matter which custodian you're at, and it says, hey, you need to have, and for us it's Quest Trust Company, FBO, which stands for the benefit of your name, IRA 12345. And you're like, I don't want to have all that on there. This is why. There has to be proper vesting, right? The defense that the McNultys ended up using was they said, hey, the custodian allowed them to do it. They said, hey, we did research. We checked out a bunch of companies. Check out their website. Their website says I can use my IRA. I can set up an LLC. I can do all this stuff. And the court's exact words were, we are unsympathetic to your plea. Too bad. So sad. They don't care. You know why? Because just like I said at the very beginning of this presentation, I don't give any tax, legal, investment, or structuring advice. And every retirement custodian out there says the same thing. It says it right on their website, says it at the bottom of their emails, it says it right before any custodian gives a presentation.
And ultimately, the IRS, ignorance is not an excuse.
So, love this aspect. Ignorance is not an excuse. The IRS asserted that the McNulty's engagement of the checkbook IRA provider did not present a reasonable cause of defense. That's it. So ask yourself. Now what ultimately ends up happening is this means the McNultys, they were in their mid-60s, lost their entire retirement account. All of it. Now as I'm reading through this court case and stuff, I'm making the McNultys out to be a bad people. But they're not. So ask yourself, do you really think they were trying to do something to defraud the IRS? Maybe. Perhaps, right? But most of the time, my job is to sit here and read tax code. My job is to sit here and study these court cases. What is your guys' job? Right? Most people, they're not going to sit here and read this stuff. They don't stay up to date with this stuff. So what they did is they had a custodian that wasn't educating them and giving them proper education in these areas. They weren't sitting here trying to do something prohibited. They thought it was legitimate. They thought they could just buy gold stored in their house. Nina, yes?
But you said that they deliberately interviewed several different custodians and went with one that they wouldn't have to respond to or answer to.
So,
Which leads us to believe that maybe they, not so much maybe they wanted to operate in the gray area.
yeah. So the question for those of you out there online was, didn't you say that the McNultys interviewed and looked at multiple different custodians before going with one and went with one that would allow them to do what they wanted? Absolutely. And that was the biggest problem. Just because a custodian says it's okay doesn't get you out of trouble. You got to remember that a lot of custodians out there, what they did was they just charged McNulty a fee. Yeah, sure, we'll let you do whatever you want. I get to charge you a big fee. You know how many clients Quest has turned away because of that reason? I'm sorry, you're going to have to go with another custodian. We're not going to allow you to do this, and here's why. And we have this debate all the time with people, and it comes down to that same thing. It's like, look, I can tell you that IRS publication 4975, section C, subsection C says XYZ. Still don't believe me, right? And you're going to find a custodian that will allow you to do it. And the IRS, once again, was unsympathetic to that plea. Question there in the back.
You said he lost the entire account. You mean he lost the privilege of tax deferral or he lost the asset itself?
So the question is, when I say they lost the entire retirement account, does it mean loses it or what happens? So the way it works when you do a prohibited transaction is the IRS gets to backdate your investment that you did to the year you did it. So they take your full retirement account balance. Let's say it's $1 million today. They're going to distribute that $1 million all the way back to the year you bought your asset. For the McNultys, this was 7 years prior. So they have a tax bill, $1 million of 7 years ago. Did they pay that tax bill? Nope. So guess what? They got penalized for year 1. Did they pay it in year 2?
Nope.
Year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they get to multiply that infinitely until the account is gone.
So they
Yep, so they got that's great. So he's asking, so they lost the privilege, but they still get to keep the coin. Absolutely. But now they have a tax bill that's larger than the amount that those coins are worth, and that's why. So not only do they lose their retirement account, they have a big tax bill, and what do? And now they're in their mid-60s. So once again, I truly don't think they were trying to do something prohibited. They were just poorly educated in this area. Is the IRS looking at those types of accounts now?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. We now have the Secure Act that passed Section 322 that is targeting prohibited transactions. We now have a court case that just was finalized targeting prohibited transactions and checkbook control. How is Congress viewing self-directed IRAs today versus 10 years ago? One of the biggest problems I see amongst a lot of people is they set up an LLC, they set up a C Corp, they set up an S Corp, they set up a trust. They set it up and 10, 15, 20 years go by, and they have never updated those documents. You know why? I'm too cheap to pay the attorney. Come on, guys. That's a lot. It really is. If you don't think tax code changes every 10 years, you're crazy. You know when the last court case is that we used to reference that had this happen? Was in 1997. It was called Swanson versus Commissioner. Swanson versus Commissioner actually took place in 96, officially passed in 97. And a lot of people would try to use this court case for a defense mechanism. And I'm like, man, that court case now is 30 years old. If you don't think tax code changes every 30 years, you're crazy. So are you set up properly for retirement then? Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't. You know, a lot of people aren't doing the right investments. They're not using self-directed IRAs the proper way. They're not saving the right amount. You know why? Because they didn't ever set up an account. So ultimately, if you're out there, I don't care where you go, I don't care which custodian you go with, consider setting up an IRA. Especially consider setting up a Roth. Doesn't matter what age you are, you can set up a Roth IRA for a 1-year-old nowadays. That's nice. Everyone qualifies for a Roth. Set up one account. Quest charges you $100. You know, quick and easy. In conclusion, guys, leverage your IRA specialist. Right? Quest, we have multiple ones here on staff, 8 to 5, Monday through 8:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, that will answer your questions at any point in time on these topics. Congress is really becoming more and more open to self-directed IRAs. I know I'm scaring the pants off you, but look at all the things they're doing for Roths, allowing additional contributions, actually viewing these things, right, and letting you still invest in real estate with these. Do your own due diligence. And as you do due diligence, make sure the sources that you're looking at are cited, which is why at the very beginning, I wanted to make sure everything for everyone out there, this was fully cited, not by an opinion article, but directly referencing either court cases, the Congress, or IRS, because those are great cited sources. And lastly, don't forget to vote. Someone over in the corner just laughed at that, but it's true. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there are not voting. We have seen these voting aspects go down drastically, and then what ends up happening is you don't vote, and then all you do, and I apologize for the language, but is bitch then about who's in office. If you didn't vote, you don't have a reason to complain. Vote. Get out there and vote for who. It doesn't matter if you want to vote red or vote blue or vote in the middle or vote for someone random. Do it. Get out there and understand what is going on at the government level, at the Congress level, because this is what makes those changes for you guys. So the help with this, right? Quest, and I know Sarah brought it up earlier, was talking about a class that we're going to do in March, right? Right there at the end of March. It's the Master of Tax Avoidance. So what we're doing is we're bringing in multiple tax attorneys, multiple CPAs. It's going to be an in-person event in Houston. Why? Because you can't talk about taxation at that type of level and just try to get it online. When you actually are there in person, you can get real good, solid education from a tax attorney, from someone like John Heyer. John Heyer is an IRS litigation attorney, flying in all the way from Puerto Rico to teach you guys. We have people like Michael Plax and Adam Barr who deal strictly in real estate CPA aspects and are up to date with everything. Keith, yes?
So, given that traditional IRA is tax deferred,
Mm-hmm.
and so while you're investing in an Roth IRAs are after-tax money that are tax-free. They grow and are distributed tax-free. Won't most of this talk be centered around stuff outside of IRAs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the question was, we're doing a class on Master of Tax Avoidance. Aren't we? If you do this class, Quest, what are you going to get out of it? Because isn't this going to be centered mainly around taxes outside of a retirement account since a Roth IRA already grows tax-free? Yes and no. So the reason why, guys, is remember, Quest, we do pride ourselves in our education. Me talking about the Secure Act to you guys, yeah, I mentioned things that affect retirement accounts, which is nice, but overall, we have to remember that we like to provide education, and an educated client is going to make the best decisions. They really, really are. So we are charging $150 for this event, and it's all the way out in Houston. For those of you that are taking this class today, and today only, we'll give you 50% off if you'd like to attend the class. For those of you here in person, obviously you got to make a little bit of drive. If you're out there online, you might be able to get away if you already live there in Houston to get a ticket for $75. So if you are interested, send me an email. I'll have my email up there on the screen. And then we're going to do a little bit of deal pitching here in a minute. So before I switch it over to the deal pitching side, if you want to sign up for the Master Tax Avoidance class, let me know. But let's take some questions. Question over here on the left.
Back to
McNulty court case. Got it. Questions on that?
one of the reasons he got in trouble was because of this unfettered control,
Unfettered control. That's correct. It's one of the reasons he got in trouble.
meaning your IRA account investments you make through it, you can't have any decision-making in how those investments are carried out.
Wrong. So the question was, he had unfettered control, so can he not make decisions for those investments? Wrong. So the IRS says you are what they call a fiduciary to your retirement account. If you want to actually look up and define that term properly, you want to look at IRS publication 408, little a, right? There's a difference between little a and big A. But with this, fiduciary's job is to make the best decision possible for the retirement account. Unfettered control means that they were telling the IRS, hey, we didn't do anything with these gold coins. We didn't trade them. We didn't buy them. We didn't sell them. They had full access. They could actually go out and touch it, feel it, see it, look at it, right? They had no proper bookkeeping, which would have been the fair market values, the updating of the valuation. How do you know from the day they purchased those coins in 2010 to all the way to 2022, nothing changed? Those coins that go up in value, they go down in value? How many did they purchase? They didn't keep any of that info. It was all hearsay. So that was the problem. They had unfettered access. So if we look at IRS Revenue Code 4975, Section C, subsection E, which was recently updated as of November 2021, they added a new section that says now a fiduciary to a retirement account can no longer have access to the capital or the assets. So access meaning I can't sit here and write a check for it. I can't sit here because ultimately, could you just write yourself a check? Yeah. And that was the speculation. Could I buy a house with my IRA and then go live in it and not tell the IRS? Yeah. So that's what they're worried about. And that's what they mean by unfettered control. They want you to use your IRA, buy a house, and rent it out to someone. That makes sense, you know? But they don't want you to be able to leverage the account and go buy a house and live in it. Have access to that bank account and write yourself a check. So
Say you're buying land,
Mhm.
like half an acre to build a home on,
Yep.
not for personal use, to rent it out to an unrelated party, but you get to decide what kind of house you want to build, how you want to build it,
He's talking about buying land and building on it, just for those of you online.
paying contractors and stuff like this. You wouldn't run into any trouble with that.
Not at all. So the question was, if I want to use my IRA, buy a piece of land, and build a property on it, can I do that? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's a very common investment. We have one of our largest clients out there that does this on a consistent basis out in Arkansas. And what he does is he uses his IRA, he buys property, then he uses the IRA to clear the land. The IRA will pay for all the clearing of the land. And then he literally just sells the land almost immediately, which is funny because now it's ready to go ahead and lay pipes and anything else. But if you wanted to keep continuing with that, that is not a problem. You also should be overseeing parts of the construction. When I say this, I mean, who is going to be the contractor? You're choosing that. Where do you cross the line, though? Is if you're the one who went and cleared the land yourself. You're the one that went and swung the hammer to build the house. That you cannot do. So that's the difference. You have to be very passive, be it an arm's length style transaction. Question there in the back.
Back to the FMV.
FMV questions? Okay.
Since, let's say in my
Sarah, you can come up if you have stuff. Okay.
in my case, all my investment was quite passive.
Yep.
Therefore, I don't have control over when the LLC will submit the FMV, and I understand maybe there's a deadline by January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think in this case, what happens if it's not submitted by?
Sure. So the question was, hey, man, I got all my investments in my IRA are very passive. I invested in a lot of LLCs, being syndications typically, multifamily storage units, multifamily, perfect. So what happens is the syndicator, it is the easiest thing ever. They need to send us an email. That is it. Hey, so-and-so invested in me. They invested X amount of money. And as of right now, we believe it is worth this amount of money. We will be releasing the K1 by January 31st. That's it. And we can accept a K1 for the value. So people put so much thought into these FMVs, but all it is we just need something so we can report to the IRS what is the value of that asset.
So by the 15th, you need the email?
Yes.
The 31st is K1?
Yep.
But what if they don't have the FMV by the 15th? I mean, I guess you have to do a study for that in order to determine the FMV, right?
That's correct. So
You have to hire a third party maybe.
No,
and
you
then-
don't.
So you very rarely you have to hire a third party unless it's going to be a taxable event for an FMV. So let's just say you're sitting there and you're freaking out. You're like, but Derek, man, I'm not going to be able to get you this FMV by the 15th. Good. Let us know that. We'll charge you. We'll do it for you. We do it for $75. You know. However, it is such an easy email that your syndicator can send. And if the syndicator has multiple people, usually what they do is they just send us a spreadsheet. You know, it says, hey, these 10 people from Quest invested in me. This is how much they invested, and this is roughly what they're worth. Or sometimes they just say value has not changed, which is very common as well. So ultimately, it's something that's so simple. We don't mind charging you to do it, and we will do it ourselves. But you can save the $75 just by reaching out to the guy you invested with and have him send a simple email.
And what happens if you don't send the K1 by January 3rd?
So ultimately, if you don't send it by there, we're going to start to send you, and it's scary, but like threatening letters, like, hey, we need this by, we already need it, you're past the deadline. And then it kind of starts to go through this process where if we don't get it by a certain time frame, unfortunately, we're not going to hold the asset, right? We're going to give you the asset personally, meaning it's treated as a distribution. So if you invested $100,000, it's as if you received $100,000 in cash. Mm-hmm.
In all the previous years, they sent me personally the K1 in March, sometimes in the end of March. That means they didn't send it to you by the January 31st, or I don't understand.
No, so that's fine. So that's the same thing. Like I said, as long as your syndicator sends us an email, hey, look, we're going to get you the K1s by February, by March, by April. We need something from them, right? You can't report your own value because you could either overinflate it or underinflate it purposely, So we just need and this is why we always call it a third party, but most of the time it's going to be that syndicator, a simple email. Hey, this is currently the value. Or maybe, hey, look, we're still doing the book, so we don't have the value. We will get the K1s released by X date. This gives me something to take to the Texas Department of Banking and say, hey, look, for this account, we don't have this yet, but it's coming, and here's why. All right? So it's something that's so easy. That's all it is. We just need a very standard, basic communication. Yeah, no worries. Keith, did you have a question? Nina, a question?
So going back to your boot camp for tax questions.
Yes, back to the boot camp.
Yes. So how deeply are the lawyers going to talk about, so like for instance, he's involved in multifamily with his IRAs.
Mhm.
Because most of those multifamilies aren't paid with cash, they're leveraged. Now he's going to be subject to,
UDFI. Yep.
say that again?
UDFI, or Unrelated Debt Finance Income Tax, yes. So we're actually sectioning out an entire section, bringing in a guy named Adam Barr, who that's his whole job, is to calculate UDFI for things like solo 401ks and or IRAs. $75 for the class just today, guys. Tomorrow will be $150.
So the thing is that with the UBIT, basically, is what we refer to it,
Yep, a lot of people call it UBIT.
So, if you invest with your retirement, your hands are kind of tied where you're forced now to hire an accountant to do that. Or can you yourself, if you know what you're doing, fill in those tax forms?
So you absolutely. So the question was, man, if I use my IRA and I invest into one of these syndications, right? These syndications, they may be bringing on a form of what we call UBIT. The proper term is going to be UDFI, or unrelated debt finance income tax, right? When do we pay our taxes for an IRA? Does anyone know?
15.
When profit is made.
Well, yes, when they sell.
Okay? So, I saw it just click over here.
Or when they start making distributions.
Not when they start making distributions. The problem is I invested $100,000, right? I invested $100,000 with you. You give me a distribution of, let's just call it $1,000 a month. At the end of the year, I got $12,000 in distributions. Did I make a profit on my investment? No. Do I owe any form of taxation then?
No, that's a no, because you have to receive.
So with the IRA, I like your thought process. Could it be a capital return? Absolutely, when you use a taxable entity. Taxable entities, you personally, your LLC, your C Corp, your S Corp, something like that. But we didn't use any of those, did we? We used an IRA. Knowing we used an IRA, this is not profit yet. Profit is not made until typically the end of the syndication.
When it's sold.
Right? So when should we be hiring the CPA to calculate this? When it's sold, when we make our money.
Right.
Now, knowing that, a lot of CPAs and a lot of tax attorneys will argue, hey, you should still file a 990T every single year. This will let the IRS know that eventually you should be owing some taxes. Now, what's really nice about this aspect, though, is during this process, you get to claim all of those deductions they mentioned in the previous years to offset any of those UDFIs. And that's why they argue you should file. Do you need to, though?
No.
That's up for debate.
Do you need to take the deduction?
So the question was, do I need to take the deductions? So if we talk to Michael Plax, a higher-end tax attorney out in Houston, Texas, he says no. You talk to Adam Barr, he says yes. Right? So what's the answer? Oh.
Until the IRS takes a stand,
How long do you have for retroactive? 3 years?
Nope. So yeah,
it's 7.
it's 7 years. So it's Muhammad, right? Yeah. So you did your syndication, right? How long ago did you do it?
I did several years in different syndications.
Okay, so in any one of your syndications, like you said, the most recent one in March, you got a K1. On the K1, if we look at section 3 in the upper right-hand side, did it show a positive or did it show a negative value?
Negative because of the
That's your deduction.
accelerated
Boom, there's your deduction right there.
And you can take that as passive loss carryover too, can't you, from year to year within the IRA?
So the question was, can I take that? Sorry, guys, I always have to repeat your question because we've got a lot of people online.
We've got a lot of questions online.
Well, here, bring your questions up here, Sarah. Sorry. Yes, you can retroactively take those. Sorry.
I'm going to ask all those at the tax center.
Yes, so that is the purpose of this Master of Tax Avoidance Bootcamp. Sarah, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure all the questions online get answered, so I'm going to sit at my desk and read them out to you. All
Okay.
right? Okay, so the first question that we have online is from Christina Fuller, and she asked, can you please explain a little bit more? Does it include employees working 18 to 20 hours a week? Is this only for full-time employees? The reason I ask is because some companies don't even offer 401ks yet. Can you go over that one more time?
Perfect. So she's talking all the way back here at section 101 for automatic enrollments, I believe. So with section 101 on the automatic enrollment side, this only applies if the employer is offering a retirement plan. Now, every employer that does offer a retirement plan, they also put their own rules and regulations in there. So like for Quest, you have to work for Quest for 1 year before you qualify to participate in that 401k. So if you are working part-time and the employer allows for you to participate in the 401k, the minute they allow you to, yes, you'll automatically be enrolled. But unfortunately, most part-time employees are not eligible to participate in the retirement plan. So I hope that helps, Christina. I know you as well. I think I actually set up your account 2 years ago. So I have a weird memory.
Awesome, thank you. For our next question, it's a little bit of a conversation between some of the attendees online. It says, please clarify what you mean the investor lost the IRA. Did they lose it, or was it the entire account? Did it become taxable? Someone else said, well, maybe my guess is that they still have the asset, but they have to pay the taxes. Can you please explain this scenario?
Yes, so when I say this, I always, and I was describing it a little bit ago, was the IRS distributes the retirement account to the McNultys the year they did the investment. Now, if you want to really look into what the taxes and penalties are, you want to look at IRS publication or IRS Revenue Code 4975, Section A and Section B. These two sections are going to talk about all the penalties, how they applied, and ultimately the taxes and penalties eat up the value of the IRA. However, the asset is a tangible asset. The asset doesn't just disappear. So the McNultys still absolutely owned all their assets. They're just in their personal name, not in the retirement account name.
Awesome. Okay, can you clarify this? Was the issue, we're moving back over to McNulty, was the issue with McNulty that he stored coins in the house, or that he didn't update the FMV, or the fair market value?
Both. There was 3 issues. So understand that if the IRS is going to literally try to take away something like this from you, they're going to try to get you on multiple different areas. That way it is a for sure win for them. Issue 1, they stored the assets in their own personal safe in their personal home. Issue 2, they had unfettered access or unfettered control to those assets. Issue 3, they did not do proper bookkeeping, record keeping, and updating of the fair market value. So they hit them with all 3 things. Good question.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to answer this one, but I'm going to read it out loud. Rodney asked if we have the presentation about, the first parts of the Secure Act. We do, and if you would like that, please post it in the comments. We'll send that to you. Moving on, Sally is asking a question about FMVs for real estate for IRS purposes. Would it be the amount that is being paid on for taxes?
So if your IRA owns a physical piece of property and it's just for FMV purposes, usually you just want to go off the county tax records. That will suffice just fine. If the county says that's what the property's worth, it's what it's worth to us. We don't care. All right? If you're actually doing something that's considered a taxable event, distributing, Roth conversions, or RMDs, you do need to get what we call a hard appraisal. Suck it up, pay that $500, and someone comes out and appraises that property. I hope that helps to answer your question. If it was something different, Sally, call me or send me an email, and I'll help you out directly, okay?
Awesome. And then Ron has a question here. It says, if you have a self-directed IRA and you invest in an LLC, which invests in syndicated partnerships, who do you hire to be the managing member of the LLC? And he's referring to a SM LLC in his question. Who can write those checks?
Yeah, so an SM LLC stands for Single Member LLC.
And
right?
who can write the checks? Follow-up question.
So I'm going to change your verbiage there just a little bit, because you used the term, who do you hire? Hire implies that you have to pay somebody. Some people would argue, yes, you should pay your manager, right? But do you have to? It's up to you. So really, the people that can be the managers, not you, not your spouse, parents, and kids. That's it. Right? And their spouses, but that's just because it's kind of an extension. So I have actually gone through this motion myself. I used my IRA to set up a trust, and I labeled my 19-year-old sister as the trustee. In an LLC or single member LLC, that single member would be my sister in that case. So a sister could work, a sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, another business partner, a good close friend if you really trust them. But ultimately, I want you to think of them as exactly that. They are a manager. Does Walmart hire managers all the time? Absolutely. Does the CEO, though, are they the one that make the real decision? Yes. So you are the owner. You're hiring someone else, or you're putting someone else in place to carry out what you want done. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. And we have only 3 more questions left, and I'm going to limit it there. If you do have more questions, of course, you can send us an email. But last couple questions here. Can an asset's FMV be the market value reduced by the assumed cost of sale as though it was sold on December 31st?
Yes, I like that question. Many times these assets will fluctuate in value. Property always does. We see this all the time, right? Syndications will fluctuate in value. As we were stating earlier, the K1s will a lot of times show a negative value up there. Well, if I invested $100,000, that K1 shows a negative $10,000 now, well, guess what? My asset valuation is $90,000. That's very common. So as long as it's not like a drastic change of like 50% or something, that's going to raise a lot of red flags. And then we have to ask some questions in those cases. Good question.
All right, moving right along. Can tax implications from the syndicate investment be transferred to the individual instead of the IRA
Nope.
LLC? Yeah.
That's a negative. So you always want to consider who did the investment. If you personally did the investment, you personally receive the profit, you personally take the tax deductions. If your LLC did the investment, your LLC receives the profit, your LLC pays the taxes, your LLC takes the tax deductions. If your IRA did the investment, same thing. The IRA receives the profit, the IRA will pay any UDFI taxes. If owed, the IRA will take the tax deductions. The reason why? These 3 things are in different tax brackets. That's why your CPA charges you for every individual filing.
Awesome. And then last question, can I get a copy of this presentation? And the answer to that is going to be
Oh, yes.
yes, you sure can. So for those online, this will be saved on the platform that you're watching, whether it be YouTube or Facebook right now, and that'll be available for you to always go back and watch at any time, as well as any of our other classes. But thank you. Let's give Derek a big round of applause.
Sorry, we went way over. I didn't realize I'd have so many questions, Sarah.
No,
I'm
but
sorry.
that's great. We had a lot of questions online, a lot of questions in here, and we want to make sure that we always get them answered for you. But as Derek mentioned, if you would like to take advantage of the offer that we are offering only for today for that boot camp, either come see myself, Derek, Megan, Juan, any of us in the back, we can help out, or for those online, I did go ahead and post it in the comments, but you can get the discounted ticket with the code MTA, that's Max Terry Alpha 50, so MTA 50. And the link is also in there for you as well. But with that being said, we want to thank everyone for coming out, and we will see you at Self-Directed IRA Saturday in a couple days. Bye-bye.